Cueva Cheve tragedy. High in the mountains of northwest Oaxaca, Mexico, sits Cueva Cheve, one of the deepest caves on Earth, reaching nearly 8,900 feet above sea level. To explorers, it's both a wonder and a threat, a place of incredible beauty but constant danger. Every year, the world's best cavers return, driven by the thrill of pushing limits and the urge to explore the unknown. In February 1991, a team of 14 skilled cavers set out on a bold mission to reach a sump deep inside the cave and attempt a dive that no one had done before. The path was brutal. They had to descend 115 vertical drops, rigging ropes across sharp rock faces and passing rebelays that forced them to unclip and reclip their gear midair. Every move required absolute focus. A single mistake could mean death. By February 25th, 6 members had made it safely to Camp 2, nearly 2,800 feet underground. Over the next few days, others rotated in and out, hauling down vital supplies. The cave demanded everything from them: strength, patience, and constant awareness that danger was never far away. On March 1st, Peter Boston and Peter Haberland re-entered with James Brown, who was recovering from an injury, and Chris Jurger, who had just gotten over an illness. To avoid traffic in the tight tunnels, they entered in pairs. Jurger and Haberland moved ahead, navigating the twisting shafts of Saknoon's well. During the descent, Jurger accidentally dropped his rappel rack, essential for controlling his rope. A small slip, but in a place like Chev, small mistakes carried heavy weight. Haberland quickly lent him his own rack so he could recover it. The tension was high, and every misstep gnawed at the team's nerves. By evening, the two reached the last section before Camp 2, a 2-pitch drop into the East Gorge. The first part was a sloped 33-foot descent to a rebelay. The second was a sheer 75-foot free-hanging shaft. Haberland went first, carefully working his way past the awkward anchor point. Once at the bottom, he shouted up that the line was clear. Moments later, the silence broke. A rock clattered down, followed by a rush of air. Then, a sickening thud. Haberland's stomach dropped. Looking up, he saw no sign of Jurger. Peering over, he spotted him below in a shallow pool, motionless. His leg was twisted unnaturally, his helmet knocked askew, his pack pressing him into the water. Heart pounding, Haberland rushed down to him. He tried to turn his head to keep him from drowning, but there was no response. Something had gone terribly wrong. In a burst of determination, he sprinted to Camp 2 in just 15 minutes, an incredible feat in such harsh terrain, where Boston and Brown were waiting. Together, they raced back. What they found was grim. Jurger's face was pale, blood ran from his nose, and he showed no signs of life. Boston checked for a pulse. Nothing. They pulled him from the water and began CPR. Each breath made a sickening gurgle in his chest. They fought for 20 long minutes, but nothing changed. His body began to swell, and shining a light in his eyes showed no reaction. Finally, they had to accept the truth. Chris Jurger was gone. Alcove Pit tragedy. On September 5, 2013, Brett Smith and his friends went on a hunting trip deep in the backwoods of New Mexico. The land around them was empty and harsh, dusty rock with only a few scattered patches of forest. They carried only basic supplies and a thin nylon rope for emergencies. None of them had ever gone caving before. That's when they came across it, a jagged pit almost hidden by the rough ground. Brett leaned over the edge. The opening was wide, but quickly narrowed into darkness about 35 feet down. Locals called it ALF Pit, a dangerous, unmarked sinkhole known among cavers for its steep drops and tricky shape. Brett felt strangely drawn to it. Even though he had no gear or experience, he decided to go in. His friend tried to warn him, but Brett brushed it off. He tied their nylon rope, a cord never meant for climbing, to a tree and started lowering himself down. The deeper he went, the tighter the walls closed in. He pressed his feet against the rock, trying not to scrape against the jagged edges. His arms grew tired, his grip weakening. Then, his foot slipped. Rocks rattled down into the pit, echoing in the darkness. Panic set in. He was too far down, and climbing back up felt impossible. Brett called up to his friend, saying he needed help getting out. His friend, desperate, tied the rope to their ATV, hoping to pull him up. As the vehicle moved, the rope pulled tight in an unnatural way. Brett yelled for him to stop. Then came the sound no one wanted to hear. Snap. The rope broke. Brett fell nearly 20 feet, crashing into the jagged rocks below. Pain ripped through his body. Every breath was shallow and sharp, his limbs refusing to move. Above, his friend froze, horrified by the sound of the fall. With shaking hands, he called emergency services. Rescuers arrived and lowered ropes, calling Brett's name into the pit. But there was no reply. When they finally reached the bottom, they found him still, his body wedged between sharp rocks. The fall had caused devastating injuries. Despite all efforts, Brett didn't survive. His body was carefully lifted out after hours of work. The pit stood silent once again, a dark reminder of how one reckless decision can turn deadly in an instant. Culver Creek Cave Tragedy. On a cold afternoon, November 28, 1985, 7 friends set out to explore Coulson Creek Cave in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. Heavy rain had flooded their original destination, Friar's Hole, so they decided to try Coulson instead. Though they didn't know the cave well, it seemed like a safer choice. Inside, the cave had a narrow canyon, about 5 to 8 feet wide, with a fast-moving stream running over loose rocks. Just 50 feet in, they came across a massive 5-foot boulder blocking part of the passage. They had 2 options: climb over the rock or squeeze through a tight gap where the stream rushed past. 3 of them made it through without trouble. Then came 26-year-old Eric Tacey, an experienced caver, leading the next group. He chose to step carefully through the stream on the left side, but as soon as he reached the center of the boulder, the rock shifted. The others tried to stop it, but it was no use. The boulder rolled and pinned Eric against the cave wall. His head and shoulder were crushed against the stone. His cheek pressed hard into the cold rock. His legs dangled helplessly below him. The weight crushed his chest, making it harder to breathe. His friends panicked and tried to move the rock. One ran for help while the others pushed with all their strength, even using crowbars. But the boulder wouldn't budge. Eric stayed conscious for only half a minute. His breaths grew shallow until they stopped. A thin trickle of blood ran from his nose as his pulse faded. The cave filled with silence, broken only by the rush of water and the pounding of terrified hearts. Rescuers arrived at 4:20 p.m., nearly an hour later with a hydraulic jack. They managed to shift the boulder just enough to free Eric's body. His friends dragged him to dry ground. At 5:25 p.m., Eric was carried out on a stretcher and rushed to the hospital. Doctors tried IVs and heart medications in a last effort, but nothing worked. He was pronounced dead. The cave that was supposed to be the safer option had turned into his grave, a tragic accident that none of them could have predicted. If you enjoyed the video, then subscribe for similar ones in the future.